Okay, this next video is about forms of government. The very first one we're going to talk about is democracy, and which you guys should already know. Demos means the people, and krasi means to rule. So it means that the people rule. Now, there's actually two types of democracy. The first is the purest form of democracy, a direct democracy. This is pretty rare because it's hard to do. But basically what it means is that everyone participates in government and gives their opinion. The people don't have to elect people like a president or a congressman or a senator to go make laws for them. They all get together and they actually make the laws themselves. They collectively come together, debate, discuss, and vote on laws and create them. It's a very effective way of governing. The problem is there's a lot of people on this earth. In America, we have about 320 million people. So this wouldn't work very well for us as a country. It would be terrible. That's why we practice a representative democracy. I'll get to that in a second. So direct democracies are really rare, really rare. They're really nice, but they're hard to do. There is a state in America that does practice a direct democracy. It's Vermont. Not the whole state, but a lot of the small towns in Vermont, they actually practice a direct democracy. People come together in these small Vermont towns, and they get together in these town hall meetings, and they actually discuss, debate issues, and they actually come up with laws and pass them. And they decide, like, hey, we should lower the speed limit in front of the school, or we should raise it, or we need a new stoplight here. They collectively, as a group, come together, make these decisions, and make change happen. They don't have to elect somebody. They do it as a group and as a community. It's pretty cool. I've always said that if I could live in any other state besides Indiana, I'd probably choose Vermont. One, it's got beautiful mountains, and it's really gorgeous and hilly and mountainous and outdoor. But two, they have direct democracy. And I personally think that would be a really cool thing to be able to be involved with. The fact that just an average citizen, anybody in town, can go in and pitch an idea for change in their community and vote on it and see that change instantly happen. They don't have to vote, wait for an election, and vote for that for an individual who may or may not make that change for them. Like I said, it's the purest form of democracy, but it's really, really, really rare. Okay, this brings up the next point. Since direct democracy is very hard to do, we've come up with a more efficient way of having democracy, which is representative democracy. This is what America practices as a whole. It's what the state of Indiana practices. It's the most popular form of democracy because it does work on a large scale. You can do it with millions and millions of people. And basically what it involves is voting. The people vote. Every November, we vote for our leaders. If we don't like the job that somebody's doing, we kick them out of office. If we don't like how our congressmen or our senators represent us, we fire them because the people have the power, and we elect new officials to represent us. So the people vote and elect officials to represent them. Okay? This is what we do every November. Okay? The people have the power. We elect President Obama. He's not really all-powerful. We decide that he has power. And if he would do something that we really don't like, there's a process that we can do to fire him. It's called impeaching him, and we could get rid of him. The same with our representatives for the state of Indiana. For our district, where you guys live here in Lawrence, we're represented by this guy here, Andre Carson. Okay, and then each state has two senators. You'll learn about this more next year when you get into 8th grade social studies, U.S. history. But we're also represented by Dan Burton and Joe Donnelly. And these are the men that we have elected to represent us in government. They're from Indiana. They all have homes here. But they go to Washington during session. They go there. They make laws. They vote on laws. They decide how our country is going to operate. Right now, they're all voting and discussing and debating whether the United States is going to attack Syria. That's been a big issue in the news lately, and they're deciding whether that's going to happen. We've elected these men to go there and make those decisions for us. If they don't do a good job, if we don't like what they do, we vote them out of office. We have the power, but we entrust them to go to Washington and represent us, make laws for us. Okay. Monarchy. Again, you guys probably know this one. It's a king or a queen that has all the power, basically, and they get their power through heredity. It's passed down from generation to generation. So if your dad is the king, and you're the firstborn son, or you're the firstborn daughter, you are going to be the king or the queen. Kings very rarely take power by force. It's almost always passed down from one generation to the next. So if your dad's king, you're going to be king. There's no other way to become king. That's the only way it happens. The next one, dictatorship and autocracy. Well, let me back up. If you have not added these to your notes, make sure to pause and add these to your note sheet. That's very important. Very important. Okay, dictatorship and autocracy. We use these words interchangeably. They basically mean the same thing. A lot of times today we use the word autocrat instead of dictator. You'll hear that in the news a lot, an autocracy or the autocratic leader. It basically means the same thing as dictatorship. Let's look at the Greek word origin. I'm sorry, I want to show you that picture here. So like this guy's Adolf Hitler, okay? This is Hitler. Oops, wrong one there, guys. Sorry about that. This is Adolf Hitler. Okay, he led the Nazi party that took over Germany and started World War II. Not a cool dude. Killed 6 million Jews. We're going to talk about him a lot this year when we get into the Middle East, studying Israel. Pretty terrible human being. Awful. Anyways, he was a dictator, but you could also call him an autocrat. They're basically the same exact thing. Let's look at the Greek word origin. So, auto means self, okay? Auto means self. And krasi means to rule, right? Okay? So, basically it means self-rule. So Adolf Hitler was the sole ruler, the self-ruler of Germany during his what would you call it? His tenure as dictator. He took over power of the country. So he was a self-ruler. If we look at dictatorship, it means to tell the process. And basically what that means is that you have one person telling the process or making all the rules. Hitler was the sole rule maker for Nazi Germany. What he said, we're going to war, we're going to conquer the world. And everyone's like, oh, okay, I guess that's what we're doing now. It wasn't like there was a Congress that could be like, no, you're out of order, sir. You can't make us go to war and take over the world. You can't seize Jewish people from their homes and murder them. He's a dictator. He does whatever he wants. They rule by fear. Dictators are different from a monarchy, and that a dictator takes their power by force. Now, there have been some cases where dictators have passed on power to a son. There's a few of those. We'll talk about one later this year in North Korea, where the current dictator of that country got power from his father. But the difference between a dictator and a monarch, and an autocrat and a monarch, while it's usually one person in power of each one of these things, is that the dictators almost always take power by force. They get the backing of military, and they usually overthrow the government, and they take control of a government and a country by force. It's almost always happens. They also don't like to call themselves dictators. They come up with other names. Hitler called himself Chancellor. He's like, I'm not a dictator, I'm a chancellor. This is Saddam Hussein, who was the dictator of Iraq until we invaded in 2003. He was captured by U.S. soldiers and then tried by Iraqi people, and they found him guilty of all sorts of war crimes, and they hung him. He was executed. But he called himself president. I'm the president. I'm not a president. Oh, I'm misspelling words again. I am the president of Iraq. I'm not the dictator of Iraq. This is something that they always do. They want to put on an image that they're for the people and that the people should love them and support them and not be angry that they've taken power and that there will never be an election, that they're going to be in power until they die. And both of these men were basically in power up until almost their deaths. this man was in power until his death. This is Kim Jong-il from North Korea, and he was in power in North Korea until his death. He seized power by force. Actually, no, I'm sorry. His father seized power by force. He passed it to him, and now he's passed it to his son. So they're not kings. They're dictators. And living in a dictatorship or an autocracy usually is kind of a bad thing. People don't really like that. Okay, if you haven't added this stuff to your notes, make sure you pause now or rewind and add these important parts to your notes. You have them for the future and for the quiz.